Hello, how's it going? Hope you have a good week so far, and I hope you got some cool stuff happening over the weekend, or at least some, I don't know, peaceful stuff. Not nothing stressful, nothing heavy, unless you want to go, wild and crazy. But yeah, no, I hope you had a good week, and my week so far has been pretty busy. Busy. Although I've been off for the last couple of days, there was a lot of catching up to do, like admin wise, comedy and podcast, and yeah, still got loads of things that I've got to get through. Um, but I'm not complaining about it. I'm just telling you, because it's kind of nice to be busy for the good reasons for once. Um, And look, I've kind of like spoke about it on the Monday episode about being like my dad's birthday. My dad's birthday would have been, or is, on the was on the 24th of March, and I think on the day I didn't think about that as much, and even now I kind of I feel a little bit better, um, sad but better. And yeah, it's just a lot of things to look forward to. um there is a show in London on the 16th of April, by the way. If you want to check it out, we're doing a four-way work in progress. um so the best thing is, even if you won't like me, there are three other comics who are, you know better than I am. So you might have a lot of fun. Or if you don't, it's okay. You've only spent an hour, it's worth it to try stuff. You remember when you were like, hey, I'm going to try like climbing? Stop climbing. You might injure yourself. Come watch comedy. And that's your way of trying something. Obviously, if you live around London or in London, not expecting for the our US listeners, or um, wait, where are the other countries? Oh, I need to actually double check the leaderboard to see the countries that are most actively listening to this. But yeah, look, if you can, come. If not, don't worry. There'll be other um, chances for you to see me live doing comedy, which is, some people's dreams. Um, don't know those people. Haven't met them yet, but who knows? Anyway, look, I know I said last week there was a special edition, as it was the 80th episode, um, with Natalie Sanandaji. And then, I was like, oh, this week as well, we're going to have a special edition um, midweek drop. Um, and this is with Aisha, a brilliant comic and a lovely person. Brilliant comic, lovely person. The idea behind it is that we've recorded this episode at the beginning of the month of Ramadan, and then now, as it's approaching the end, I thought it would be a nice time to drop out the pod. And yeah, I hope you will enjoy listening to this. And then next week there is another special edition, because I haven't done um oh my god, what's the name? I haven't done the other thing in ages. Oh yeah, sorry. There will be another episode with Mike, because from the split bill that I'm doing in the 16th of April, Mike is the only one that I haven't recorded an episode with. And we're going to record later this week and then drop it next week. And then I think, and I kind of hope, because it's been quite intense, that's it in regards to posting 2 episodes a week. We're going back to normal, which is once a week. But for now, you got to enjoy the moment. Enjoy listening to this conversation with Aisha. And yeah, look, and also to anyone else who's observing. I think that's what it's called, right? Observing the Ramadan, and you all got the Eid coming up. I hope you have a good time, and I wish you all the best. And yeah, enjoy. So I'll catch you after. Yes, it's a very professional studio environment.
This is very impressive, though. I didn't know apps like this existed.
I didn't either. I think the way it's, I got into it, and by the way, we're now recording.
Okay.
But the way I got into it is because I was a guest on someone else's podcast, and then they were like, "Oh, hey, here is like this like Riverside thing. Check it out and log in so we can do the recording." And then I was like, "Oh wow, this looks pretty cool."
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's been super helpful because like I can show you after. So basically, it actually does like a transcript of the conversation, creates like
That's
most
nice.
like important notes from the conversation, topics and stuff like this. So if you want to use the right hashtags or whatever after, you can. It's pretty good.
That's
Yeah,
so
I'm
good.
I'm pretty impressed. But how are you, Aisha?
I'm good. I'm good. As I said, I was fast. I'm fasting today, so a little bit like spacey, but otherwise all good.
I mean, because we were talking about like fasting, and you were talking about like being on what on the third day of the Ramadan, right? Is
Yes,
that the whole month, or what's the thing at the end? Is it
it's
the
a whole month, and then there's Eid as well before and after. But
so
don't
the
quote me on that.
right? But then does like the Eid? It's kind of like this, I guess, the start and the ending, or it's the celebration.
Yeah, but there's also other days where there's Eid randomly to do with the lunar calendar and to do with specific things that I don't know anything about
Which is
because
fair
I am
enough.
a bad Muslim. I actually haven't fasted in many, many years, so this is my first time back as an adult, actually. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see how it goes. It's like in the honor of my grandpa, basically, because he passed away recently.
Sorry, I'm sorry to hear about your granddad. How long ago was like super recent? No, it was like at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it was literally a couple of months ago. It was right before his birthday. But I mean, he almost made it to 85, but he's 84 years old, so he lived a long life and he had his family around him, so it was all good circumstances, at least.
When were you able to see him last?
I went to the US to see him there right before he died, so I knew that it was maybe approaching, like, because he had cancer basically, and it
Oh
was looking
God.
quite dire, yeah. So I got to spend time with him in the hospital, and then it worked out in a really weird way where I was worried that I was going to leave and then he would, like, pass away. But actually, right before I was about to leave, he died, then we had the funeral, then the next day I had the flight back to London. And, it's expensive to, like, change the flights around. But obviously, I would prefer for him to have lived longer. But it was weird how like that worked out. But yeah, I feel like with stuff like I'm really glad that I got to spend some time with him at least before.
And was he, if you don't mind me asking, just because because when before, so I don't know if we've talked about this, but like both my parents passed away, and then the thing
No, I'm
is that
sorry.
by the time I got to see them, neither of them was like conscious. Was
Mm.
did you manage, like, was your, I guess your grandpa in like the, still like conscious at the time when you managed to see him, or was it, if it's too difficult, don't worry, you don't have to answer. I'm genuinely curious, and that's
No, 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 no worries. He was conscious. He was just like quite frail. He
right.
had lost a lot of weight because I always knew him as someone like really like with this giant belly. That as a kid I would be like, oh, that's my trampoline, and I would try to jump on it. Get annoyed with me. It's really sweet. And of course, as a kid, I'd always be like, why does grandpa have a big belly? And my grandma would be like, because he drinks too much tea, that's why. So it was a bit heartbreaking to see him so skinny. But he was like, the first thing that he was like, I had moved, and he was just like, did you get the bigger room? So that was like one of the first things he said to me, which was very sweet. So I'm lucky that he was at least still a little bit of himself at the time. Yeah, and
Well,
he wasn't in a lot of pain, which is very unusual for the type of cancer. Yeah, so.
I feel like that's such an important, that's such an important thing.
Hmm.
You kind of like, I know you, it's, I don't know if, again, because I want to say like it sounds selfish, but yeah, you kind of like, you hope that, if something like this happens, at least is like the least painful, way. look, may he rest in peace. It's
Yeah.
nice to see because then I imagine you're talking is like what, because you're saying that you do the fasting in his honor, so I imagine
Hmm.
he was also Muslim,
Yeah, yeah, my whole family is
right? And then what? Because you have the next day or like same day funerals, right?
within 3 days.
Within 3 days, right. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, so it was very like crucial that I was there at least. And it's always good, I feel like, to mourn with family as well. And because we're Catholic, we don't like pray 5 times a day. I barely see mosques. So it was like the first time I went into a mosque in the US. And that was interesting because I didn't grow up in the US and my family lives there now. But there was a little bit of drama about where he's getting buried because so he's a writer and he's quite well known in Kazakhstan. So there was a lot of, I think with certain public figures, I think people feel a lot of like I don't know, like they need like, oh, I can't think of the word for it, but like that they're allowed to be like, no, he should be buried here in Kazakhstan or something. But it's
I
like that's against our religion.
Oh, no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Well, apparently, he has to be buried where you die.
Interesting. Because
But again, don't
I
quote me on that.
no, that's fine. Again, I'm not gonna this is not gonna get like fact checked, at least not by me after. But that's very interesting because again,
Mhm.
I don't have any like famous writers in my family, but I heard
Only
and
in Kazakhstan.
I know, but I've seen. I think it's like I've heard about it in Romania, for example, as well, where you have all these people who kind of like did well in Romania, and then for whatever reason, like for example, after communism ended, loads of people left,
Mhm.
or even sometimes people escaped during communism. So we have loads of people who died in France, Germany, Middle East, America, all over the world, basically. And then
Mhm.
there was always, you'd always see these things on TV where it's like, hey, we should like get them back. They should be buried here because they are our. And it's kind of like, no, I think
Mhm.
I thought as a child, I was like, why are we fighting over dead, like, dead people? That's
Yeah.
one thing. But then the other, especially in this circumstance, when someone's like, again, if it's like someone's religion, and belief to be, I feel like and again, my idea is that if you want to honor someone, you can honor them remotely as well. Like unfortunately, I don't live in the same country where my parents are buried, but I'd like to
Mhm.
think that I do certain things that I do in like their honor, like to respect them and to like remember
Yeah.
them. So I don't necessarily feel like you must have the grave there. But again, yeah, well, it's interesting
Mhm.
though, because again, you'd think that yeah, I think like with stuff like this, you're always like, hey, is this happening only to us? But then it's like, oh
Yeah.
no, there are actually so many similarities between
Yeah.
countries and like
This
behaviors and things as such.
It's so true, especially with like I think he also kind of knew because he was very insistent of like, no, I want to be in the US. I'm not going to go to Kazakhstan when he was ill because he kind of, I think, suspected that people would want like ownership of like whatever he's because with public figures like I think because he's known as a nationalist writer or like national writer, they would that the National Society of Writers or whatever would have more of like a say of how his funeral would be like.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, to have no control over your own funeral is like crazy. Again, I don't know that this is all accurate. This is just what I've heard through the grapevine. Yeah, because with some people, they like literally have them up for like the whole public to see, which I understand for some, but so weird because it's like that's yeah, he's a writer to you, but he's my grandpa. Like he's a
Yeah.
human though. But yeah, it was still good to like mourn with family as well. And also like I have like four younger siblings. I don't know the last time we were all in the same room together.
No
So it's
way.
so nice to yeah, reconnect with everybody and all of us be together. Yeah, lots of siblings. I'm the oldest.
Oh wow. Well, but I think actually you say loads, but I feel like five isn't
Yeah.
again on the especially from like I feel like families with like a religious background. You're kind of like, yeah, that's I see it. Like I understand.
Yeah.
I know families of like 10, 11, 12, and I'm like, how does one manage this? Um,
That means
yeah,
someone had to be pregnant for 10 years.
yeah,
That's
I know.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit much, and I no, again, in my, like, I wouldn't do it. I would be like, oh my god, I can't, like, I'm scared
Yeah, yeah,
about.
respect to them. Respect to them.
Yeah, yeah. I speak with my partner about like how our future, like, having kids, and I'm like, I think 2, 3 maximum. That's where I'm like done, because I
I
just.
feel that no, 2, 3 is like because you don't want an only child because you. No offense to only kids. Are you an only child?
It's weird, because I was adopted. Well,
Mm,
technically, I have a sister, but she's 20 years older than me, so I grew up
okay.
on my own. So I don't know. Like, sometimes I felt like an only child, but technically I'm not.
That still doesn't count. That still doesn't count.
Yeah,
I feel like because I mean I feel like my least favorite people were usually only kids. So I have a bias against them. Right? Also because I think you need siblings to bully you a little bit, or at least like peers around you to like kind of humble you a little bit. Because otherwise, like, anyway, I'm not gonna get into it.
no, but then who was humbling you then, when
My
you, because
parents.
okay, because that's what I was like, if you're the oldest, then you're
Yeah,
technically, you're in charge.
that's true. But I think maybe my personality was just not because I get told a lot that I don't seem like the oldest sibling. I think
Interesting.
when I'm on my own, I really don't. But if I'm around my siblings, like my sister visited last year, and my friends were like, now I see it because every single time she goes outside, you're like, did you get a jumper though? Like that, like instinct comes out. Because I mean, being comedian, you're just goofy and that's like your natural state. But like, I think around family, it's like, it's completely different in a way. And I just feel like a lot more responsible and like,
That makes sense, and
cute.
I
Yeah.
I also feel like sometimes, you've got that, sort of like liberty, because I also I noticed the changes. Although, again, I talk about like me and my sister having like 20 years old difference, I noticed the change in personality when I'm around her, and then
Mm,
when I'm not, because like when I'm around her, I'm sometimes either too quiet, or either everything is just a joke, and then she gets
yeah.
annoyed at me either way. But then when I'm on my own, I'm a bit more, like, sensible and responsible, and
That's
so
interesting.
it's funny that you say that, because now I'm like, oh yeah, because I remember, like, I had this thing where I'm like, oh, she still treats me as like a child, but then I'm like, in
Oh,
the other hand, I'm like, I kind of get it, because like I feel like, yeah, I deserve, but it's annoying at the time.
aw,
But
that's really sweet.
thank you. I'll let her know. She doesn't speak English, but yeah, she has no idea how much I complain about her, which is quite good.
Oh,
But because you were talking about, like, you being from Kazakhstan, and then,
mm,
because then how come you, because obviously you said you got family in the USA. Did you grow up in Kazakhstan? Did you move? How
no, so
What's your story?
I was born and raised in Czech Republic in Prague.
No
Another
way.
country. Another country. Yeah, because my parents met there and they decided to have kids there. And then when I was 2, I lived in Kazakhstan for 2 years with my grandparents. And then I went back to Czech Republic and then I grew up there and moved to London. But when I moved to London for university, my family moved to the US. So I technically have never lived in the US, but they have. Like my siblings are so much more American than I am. And we sound even a little bit different. I think my intonations have changed. I think my accent is still quite American though. But they sound like, like Uncle Sam. Like really okay,
Huh?
that's not how they sound like. But yeah, they sound so far American. Like I have my youngest brother, other than because so my parents. Sorry, this gets complicated. Parents, like my youngest brother is about 4. We have like a 23-year difference between us. But the second youngest, Baidar, he grew up in like he went through puberty in the U.S. So he's like very American. But I mean, I did go to an international school, so we always had like a different like bunch of cultures and all that. And there was a Kazakh community and some like there was a big Korean community as well. I remember this because they would always invite me to their dinners because their moms really liked that I would eat a lot, which was nice. And Korean food is just so good. They'd like
Was that
specifically make it without pork for me, which was so nice.
that's a lovely touch.
Hmm.
Was that in Czechia, or in
Yeah,
America?
in Czech Republic, yeah, in Czech,
In
yeah.
Czech Republic? No way. I
Yeah.
love Czech Republic. I go. I try. I haven't been for a couple of years now, but yeah, I love Czech Republic. It's one of my favorite
Yeah, I
places. I
love
love
it as
Prague.
well. I mean, growing up there was, you know, a little bit, because now it's a little bit more diverse, but at the time, like in the 90s, there was a little bit of racism, and that was not, like, I remember my grandpa telling me actually, like, oh yeah, sometimes the bus just won't stop for us. And I was like, what? And because they just didn't stop for foreigners sometimes if the bus driver
No
was like
way.
racist. Yeah. And there was some incidents in my school as well of like there was a Vietnamese kid who got arrested for no reason, and they like detained him like overnight. It was just crazy. But I think the country has like progressed a lot. Um, yeah, and it's not to say that. I mean, different flavors of racism, you know. The UK has its own. At least in Czech Republic, they were direct to your
But this
face.
is well, this is the thing. Is actually my one of my closest friends. He's from Vietnamese heritage, but he's born and raised in Czech Republic.
Mm.
He's I think the one of the ways we kind of like bonded is because he's one of the most direct people I've ever met. Like every time I'd go with to him and I'd be like, hey, I got this idea. He'd be like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, or he would be like, yeah, this is good, and then be like pushing me to like do stuff.
Oh,
And
that's really nice.
it was quite interesting because again, it got some similarities, I guess, with the Romanian sort of like
Mm.
attitude or like mentality.
No, especially because there's a huge Vietnamese like community in Czech Republic, and I remember one time there was like a bunch of like youths, you know, like teens that were like kind of following me and my sister and my cousin around, like harassing us because they thought we were Vietnamese. And then as soon as they realized we were Kazakh, they were like, "Oh no, that's fine." I'm like, "What is the difference? You were just shouting at us," and they're like, "No, we'll be friends. Come get a drink." And I was like, "What? This is mad."
And this is the
Yeah.
craziest thing where you're like, well, why? Like, it's almost like, when you ask, oh, where do you draw the line? And you're like, oh, that's where you
Mm,
draw the line. It's like Vietnamese or not Vietnamese, but yet like,
yeah.
Asian looking. And then you're like, hang on a minute, what, like, why? Then please tell us what's wrong. Like, why do you? Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like I used to sometimes do a bit on my set where I was like, I didn't see racism growing up before I came to England, but that's mostly because there were no opportunities to be. There were no opportunities to be racist in Romania. There was like I remember
Yeah.
there was one black kid at school and that's it.
Mm,
As far as I remember, it was kind of like actually everyone. Well, again, it was like this. It was the good racism, whatever the term is. I don't know. When like someone is
yeah.
treated too nicely, or like it's taken into, when everyone is like, oh my god, yeah, like this guy is here. Let's give a round of applause. And I'm like, isn't that weird as well?
It's so weird. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay, you're the diverse friend, then, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
So
like collecting a little bit.
so you see, that was the only thing that I've seen. And then yeah,
Mm,
if anything, coming to England, I was like, oh my god, people are racist. This is crazy. Because I remember watching movies, and like the Mississippi burning. It's about and again, it's about something to do with like after the like slavery ended in America, and how
mm,
like the is it KKK? Is it KKK? Yeah, KKK. The
yeah.
guys with the
With
white
the
hoods,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, would like chase and like beat up like black people and kill them and stuff like this. And it's a very
Mm,
good movie. But then I remember watching the movie and I was like, this sounds made up. Because you're
yeah,
like,
it's so intense. Because, like, at least in the middle of Europe, like, I mean, I can't speak for all of it, but a lot of the times it's like ignorance. Like, of course, you have your people that are like genuinely like abusive, but like the US, oh my God. That kind of history, that's so mad. Because I read, oh, I forgot the name of the book, but it was like kind of about certain like stories within slavery, and it was just so horrific because even the stuff that we hear is not nearly as bad as the worst. Like there's so much like oppression that happened that was just like reading that book was just
it's
but yeah,
quite.
I don't know how.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was saying I don't know how I ended up talking about this.
No, yeah, because I think we were just like diverse, but like
It
experiencing
started with
racism
death,
in,
now we're in
yeah,
racism.
and then racism in Czech Republic compared to racism everywhere else. And I almost feel
Yeah.
like I can't remember who did this joke, and I think it was about Australia, about like, but I think it applies to America as well, where you had loads of people who were like, hey, like for example in England, it's like, hey, you either go to prison or we put you on this boat and you go to the other part of the world. And then
Mm,
now it almost feels like everyone is so like people are like feeling, oh my God, this is so strange about like the abuse that say like the indigenous people like in Australia got, or again like Indian Americans or like Native Americans in America. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't the fact that most of the first people who went there were actually like probably criminals. So I'm
yeah.
like, that kind of like when you're like, okay, because to me, I'm like, yeah, well, who's gonna be most violent? Like violent, it's not gonna be someone who's like, hey, I understand, we're different, let's work together or whatever. But then if it's someone who got arrested and then had a choice of, hey, do you want to live on an island and have a fresh start, or do you want to go to prison? And then they go, oh, I'll have a fresh start. But then it's not like their behavior is gonna change on the boat.
Yeah, that's true. I
Anyway,
would really love to learn more about it because I did read some. I went to a museum and they had some reasons why some people got like sent off, or like the reason why they initially went to prison. And one of them was like stole a loaf of bread. I was like, that's why you went to prison? That's crazy. So I'm sure it was like ranged between stealing a loaf of bread and like murdered five people.
that as well, I should take into consideration that justifications for putting people in jail were probably very different. But no, again, and it's also just a thought. I've done almost no research besides of hearing about it a couple of times, just to make
I'd
sure
love to
that
go to Australia though.
me too. I feel like I wouldn't want to leave. I'm scared of like insects and reptiles and stuff like
Oh
this.
yeah, that's why I never went.
So yeah, so I
I
feel like
would. I'd get a spider bite and die immediately, I think.
it looks nice, but it's not for me. Although I make
Yeah.
jokes about moving to Australia, I would realistically probably not. Or if I do, I'd probably be in the most
Mm,
city like gentrified area where everything is made out of concrete, just to be safe.
yeah. I feel I'm a city. Are you a city boy? I'm a city
Yeah,
girl.
yeah. Because then, what about then? Because you were talking about like, oh yeah, because obviously you talked about like your granddad being a writer, and then
Mm.
were you always a creative person?
It was definitely like welcome in the house. Because I think sometimes Asians get a bad rep, and everyone thinks that we want to do finance and economics. Which, to be fair, a lot of Kazakhs, their families do tend to push them to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, the like writing and stuff. Like my grandpa always made me reading lists. I knew I wanted to be a writer from a really young age. Um, but I didn't really like. I mean, I don't really write that much anymore. I would like to get back into it. I'm actually doing the artist's way right now. Do you know the Julia Cameron book
No,
where it's basically like this spiritual like reconnection with your creativity and like unblocking whatever creative blocks you might have. It's supposed to be quite helpful. A lot of
interesting.
like, yeah. I'll recommend you the book afterwards. I'll send you a link. But yeah, basically you have to do morning pages and stuff like that. But in my house, my grandpa was always writing, so I could always hear like the typewriter click click,
No
which was
way.
nice. Yeah, and he'd always fall asleep like reading a book as well. But yeah, he always wrote me like reading lists, and I like journaled from a young age as well. And I, I think I wrote a really, really bad novel when I was 16.
I don't think I've heard many people write very good novels at 16, but please
Yeah,
continue.
that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And then like I thought I was gonna like get into screenwriting and that's kind of where I wanted to go towards when I went to university. I studied like media and English, which is like the two vaguest departments, because I was like, listen, this will give me a lot of like leeway on like where I can go. And I kind of just stumbled into comedy. I never watched stand up growing up. Like my grandpa was someone who would take himself so seriously. I wanted to be that kind of person, like who would take themselves so seriously.
No way. So then how did you stumble into comedy?
Well, my family is very funny. We would always watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding and quote that to each other. My parents used Friends to learn English, so I remember they discovered Friends through my uncle who was watching it, and they were like, "Why is there a laugh track? Why is it telling them when to laugh?
And to
Like, what
laugh.
kind of dictatorship is this?" Which was always funny. So they would always ask me to like translate that, and we'd always quote to each other like lines from movies, like "Tula, eat something." Have you seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
No,
I mean, it's a great movie, but I, for some reason, can quote it back to front just because, yeah.
I heard very good things about it. My partner loves it. We are meant to watch it. I just don't know why we haven't yet. And again, I think like, yeah, when I was a kid, I just didn't get around to. But I heard very good things about it.
Man, I honestly, it's one of my top five movies for sure. I just think it's so
Interesting.
funny. There's some funny lines in there, like, "What do you mean he eat no meat?" That's okay. I make lamb. The same one that we quote all the time. But yeah, I stumbled into comedy, I think, because then I started like realizing that I was kind of naturally gravitating towards it. And I always found myself kind of gravitating towards performance as well. I did like some high school productions where like of theater, and yeah, I went through like a big breakup, and then that's when I was like, hey, maybe comedy might be something I might give a go. And I had some friends encourage me to try it out. So I did one of those like little courses. I think the angel one.
No way.
Yeah, 'cause I had really bad stage fright as well. Yeah, I would shake every time. So I knew I couldn't go on stage without like getting a little bit of practice before.
Right.
And with the course, because you had to go up like every single day, I remember after like 3 pints, willed myself to perform. Or like showcase kind of thing. Because the last one
Yes.
is usually like a showcase where you invite your friends and family. And when I went on stage there and it was like in front of I think like 80 people, like it was I had never felt something feel so right before. Um it just was like one of those moments that I was just like, oh, shoot, I'm gonna do this forever now. I'm gonna be one of those old ladies who just keeps doing comedy. That's crazy. But yeah, I just love it so much now. And it's crazy that I didn't like grow up watching it that much.
Interesting. Because you were talking about how when you were a kid, your parents would like ask you to help like translate Friends.
Hmm.
But then that's like so just to get a better understanding, because you're born in Czech Republic. What language were
Hmm.
you speaking at home?
Kazakh. Yeah, they were
And
very
then
adamant about speaking Kazakh at home.
so Kazakh at home, Czech outside. Okay. Okay, so English, right.
Like I know how to like jeden zmrzlina, prosím tě,
Nice.
because not a lot of people would stay in school the whole time. It was because with international schools, a lot of the times people are moving in and out, but we were there the whole time.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, because you like the
Yeah.
sort of like when I guess was the word like I guess like family like expats or people like traveling in and out of countries. They oh that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, so because of that, it was like English speaking school. And it's the only
Interesting.
reason why I mean, English is my strongest language. Even my Kazakh is not as good. Because eventually, because I never learned how to like read and write in Kazakh properly. I learned through whatever my grandma taught me, and she had a very short patience for us when she would try to teach us. But
Well,
my,
but then sorry, go
yeah,
on.
sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
No, because with the funny thing is that not that I mean people speak Kazakh in Kazakhstan, but more people speak Russian in Kazakhstan, and my Russian isn't great either. So whenever I would meet like a Kazakh in the wild, like in the rest of Europe, and they would try to speak Russian to me, and I'd have to be like, sorry, my Russian isn't very good, but I do speak Kazakh. They'd be like, you don't speak Russian? How can you call yourself a Kazakh? Colonialism works sometimes. It's crazy.
Because then what's it again? My I mean I know a few Kazakh wrestlers because I grew up I used to do Greco-Roman wrestling and I met a couple of like Kazakhs when they came to Romania for tournaments.
Hmm?
But yeah, what's it? Because what's the language like then? Because is it like a Cyrillic language or is it?
It's used to be Cyrillic, but they changed it to Latin because I think they were trying to distance themselves from well, Russia, but that was like 10 years ago, I think. So it's still quite recent.
Interesting.
Yeah, but Kazakh is a Turkic language, so it's kind of similar in some ways to Turkish. I wouldn't say like if someone spoke Turkish, I wouldn't understand them.
Right.
But like for example, in Kazakh, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is bir yaka üç dört beş, and in Turkish it would be no, not in Turkish, in Turkmen, which is actually where my mom is from. It's bir iki üç dört beş, which is I think similar in Turkish. But yeah, my mother's actually from Turkmenistan, which is a country that not many people think exists. So
I know it exists, but I did not
mhm.
expect to hear about it today.
Yeah, yeah. Because we grew up being like, yeah, you're Kazakh, you know. And then I was like, wait a second, but my mother's from Turkmenistan. Because we never saw any of our like relatives really from Turkmenistan. I only speak
Right.
Turkmen because Turkmenistan's so closed, like no one can really leave.
No way.
Yeah, and especially because at the time my mother was a journalist, and they really don't like journalists. So, like, you know, the rest of her family would kind of be a little bit punished for that as well. We wouldn't be able to like leave the country. But I had seen them. We met, I think, once in Turkey when I was like a teenager. I was wearing ripped shorts, and my mama from my grandma from my Turkmen side was like, "I'll tell me to my mother, I'll give you money. Buy your daughter proper like
Clothes.
shorts." Yeah,
That's a
which
very
is sweet.
grandparent-like thing to do.
Hmm. Yeah.
No way, because but then how did, because your parents met in Czech Republic,
They're
and then
both journalists.
okay, so
Hmm.
everyone then I guess like yeah, actually at least again like a generation and a half, depending on if your grandma was also a journalist, it's been a writer of some kind, so it runs in a family.
It does actually. You know what? Because my on my mom's side, my grandpa was also a writer, and uh, yeah, I think those were the only ones. But when my parents first met, that was like one of those things where they were like, "That's a weird coincidence."
It's like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, like yeah. But they had a lot of that actually. It was actually mad because they're both the third kid out of six children. They both have four boys and two girls in their families. Yeah, and then writers on each side. And I think they might even be the same, like, what do you call it? Star sign. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, it was one of those. One of
That's so cute. You know, I mean, again, although I don't necessarily believe in star signs, but I still feel like these like I feel like yeah, sometimes I know differences help a lot in respect of our relationships,
Mhm.
but then also sometimes things that are in common, you kind of like, ah, yeah, you know, it's a good, feels more relaxing, I guess. But
Mhm.
that's amazing because then because you were talking about yeah, because then you did media and you thought, oh, I want to be like a or like a serious writer or like not serious but like not comedy.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna get into like screenwriting or like TV writing or something. And then I started kind
Right.
of realizing that I was like, even when I thought I was doing serious writing, I remember sharing it with the group and then being like, oh, that's kind of funny. I mean, like, that's not the point. It's dark. I had some silly, you know, when you're like, when you're young and you think that you're so, like, you take yourself a little bit too seriously. This is why I'm glad I was like bullied by my younger siblings sometimes because you need to be humbled, you know? Because who knows how much more worse I would have been. But yeah, there's a lot of like themes of culture and this and that, and I loved that. But I think the humor is the thing that really, um, I don't know, felt the truest in me that I didn't discover until like yeah, after going through like this breakup.
But then as well, because I guess if you're going through, and I'm gonna go back to that as well, because I have more questions about the breakup leading into comedy. At first, because I guess there are loads of I guess loads there is a big similarity, and I might be wrong, so that's why I'm curious to hear your point of view in the respects of, you know, if you're again if you're a writer, especially if you're a journalist, you have to have a critical thinking as such, but then that's also what arguably makes a good comedian. because you can kind of get to like the bone the first. You can say take like a big thing and make it go your way, or you get a different view about whatever is in front of you. You see it in a different way.
Hmm.
So perhaps it was meant to be all along. It was just the
Perhaps.
preparation of.
Yeah, that's so true. Also, because like they do such serious things sometimes, but like my parents are so funny. They just loved goofing around. I mean, not in like the like I still call my dad like sassy dad because he does so many of these like sassy like sarcastic remarks. I can't even think of one off the top of my head. And my mom is like literally she is like the life of a party. At some
Wow.
point, me and my aunt were like just hanging out or something, and my mom came up and she was just like, "Don't worry, the fun's about to start. I'm here." She's such a diva.
And then, because you are talking about the differences in the at home, and you're like, you speak. So now, when you're having those family gatherings, again, out of curiosity, do you speak in English or do you speak in Kazakh?
Well, this is the funny thing. This is the generational divide between me and my siblings. I still speak Kazakh with my family, with my parents. My siblings, though, they speak English because when they moved to the US, in order to like strengthen their English, they were like, okay, fine. Speaking English at home is fine because your mother needs to practice, or you're like your dad needs to practice.
Right, 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 right.
And they would like watch TV shows together. They watch Law and Order, and they learned the word heinous from the intro, like
Heinous, yeah.
especially heinous crimes. They loved that word. Oh my god, my brother would be like eating messily, and they'd be like, "By God, that's a heinous thing to do."
I love Law and Order, but yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
You,
I don't
you
know
you
why
hear.
they watch that.
I mean, I imagine because wait, how old are they? Because if it's
My sister is 2 years younger than me, so she's 26. I'm
yeah, it must
28.
have been on TV. I think that's why. Yeah, because if that's the case, then say even like 10, 15 years ago, I think that's when it came out.
Yeah, yeah, and this was after me though. Like it is when they watched it on Netflix in the US, like all together. I wasn't a part of that until much later. But yeah, I think they just like now it's just mad to me as well. I'm sitting there and they're like speaking English to my parents. I'm like, what? That's crazy because you don't understand. My parents had a whole point system to make us speak Kazakh in the house. Where if you got enough points, then you got to go to the work Christmas party where
No way.
yes, or the holiday party, sorry, because they're yeah. And so there would be like certain things like you didn't wash up after yourself, minus 10 points. And we would tattle on each other to be like, minus point, he spoke English. It was just so to go from that, like we had a whiteboard and everything with all the points adding up. To
Damn,
go
and now
from that
what?
to
Now,
like just speaking English to each other, it just, yeah.
now you just like be chasing your siblings, going like minus points, spoken English,
Yeah, minus
minus points,
points.
mom and dad.
Well, I don't even know if they're gonna remember that we did that. Burden of being the oldest. I mean, they should remember that for sure. But yeah, no, because my youngest brother, he's 4. He speaks English with me. He speaks Kazakh as well, but he definitely prefers to speak English. I can tell because he watches English, like
Yeah, TV
cartoons and
or
stuff like.
yeah.
Yeah, and my parents have itchy feet. They live in Turkey now, so he goes to a Turkish preschool, so he speaks Turkish as well.
No way. Your
Yeah.
parents. What? So your grandparents live in America or lived in America, and then your parents live in Turkey.
So, well, they were in the process of moving my grandparents to Turkey. So they were kind of living in Turkey. They'd
Right,
gone back to the
right.
US and they had lived with us in Czech Republic as well. So they kind of came with us wherever we went. So when we moved to Czech Republic, after when I was like 11, that's when my grandparents moved in with us. And then when they moved to the US, my grandparents moved with them. And then they were like, we're going to move again to Turkey. But then my grandpa, he went for a health checkup, and then that's when they saw the cancer. And then he was like, no,
Right.
I want to stay in the US.
But then how do your parents choose? Because this is, to me, I feel like I was born in Romania. I came to England, and as much as I want to live, I am so uncomfortable with any
Mm,
changes that I hate moving houses, never mind countries again.
yeah.
How do your parents choose these things? Is it like was that because of their work, or is it just
No, so they're not journalists anymore. When they moved to the US, they kind of changed jobs. Like my mom owns a bakery now.
no way?
because that was her real dream when she was a kid.
What
Just really
kind?
sweet. It's French. It's like it's called La Bohemia, kind of after Bohemian Grenoble.
Yes.
So it's French bakery. Plus they add in like every now and then some like Soviet things. They're like, Americans are not gonna notice the difference. Um, but one time, my dad got interviewed on the phone for like some local magazine because the bakery was doing well. His like American name was like Eddie, and they kind of quoted him as French. And he was like, you know what? That's fine. They heard an accent, they assumed. So yeah, because the bakery store is really adorable, so I'm gonna squeeze it in. When my mom was growing up in Turkmenistan, like we didn't have like bakeries and stuff like that. You could buy the ingredients, but you're not gonna just like find a cake, especially during the Soviet Union. So because she was so into like reading it, especially from different cultures, all these like different like foods and stuff, she would make cakes, and she would be the go-to person for like baking cakes. So whenever it was anyone's birthday. So she got her pocket money basically through baking cakes for people.
Yeah.
And I think it was always her dream. Like, we always had so much food in the house, and she would always be baking cakes and pastries and stuff like that. So,
What's your favorite thing? Like, what do you, if say you haven't seen your mom in ages, and then your mom goes like, hey, look, what would you like me to make for you? And although I'm being mindful that you're fasting now, so that probably is not the best question to ask someone
that's
who's,
probably why I was gravitating towards food.
yeah, I guess that's not maybe the most sensible question, but I asked it anyway, so might as well finish. What would you ask your mom? Like, or like what, again, not necessarily, but the thing that you you remember, like you think like, oh yeah, I love this the most, or like this is the first thing that I want, not necessarily love the most, but the first thing.
I would say there was this. I love chocolate, so she made this like chocolate cake with like a little bit of like gelatin type thing in the middle. She'd always make that for birthdays, so I definitely asked for that. I forgot the name of it. She does a great Napoleon cake as well, and then also baklava. She did great baklava as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love baka.
so
Well,
good.
the thing with the gelatin, my mom used to make that. That was my favorite dessert that my mom used to make was something called a Fanta cake. Have you heard about it?
No,
So
is it
it's
with Fanta, the soda?
yeah. So it's like in case you make it now, you have to. I want some, by the way, because I brought it up to you. It's like a chocolate sponge at the bottom, and then you have sweet cheese, and then a layer of Fanta jelly. So she would
Wow,
make
that sounds
like,
good.
oh my God, it was the best thing. Like I used to be so crazy about it. I remember I got in trouble once because we were quite again, I grew up being like quite like fortunate and well off financially. So that's how you knew you did well in Romania financially because you had two fridges in the house. So I stole a cake once and I put it in the other fridge on the other side of the house. And then my mom, and then I was just like eating that on my own because my mom basically made two cakes. One was for us at home, one was for to take out because I think we had like a family sort of thing, and it was like everyone brings something. And I stole one of the trays as my mom let it cool it down, and I put it in the other fridge, and I kept it, and I got caught because obviously I think at one point she noticed that I kept disappearing for like half an hour at a time.
With chocolate smeared on your face afterwards.
No, but she was like, "Oh, let's go. Let's have like lunch is ready," and I'll be like, "I'm full," and she's like, "You're never full."
Oh. It's like, this is suspicious behavior.
Yeah, and then she caught me, and I got in trouble. But yeah, no, I love that cake.
Oh, I definitely want to try that. I want to get back into baking because, yeah, because I think my mother was so intense with the kitchen, and we used to have these huge fights about like feminism, because I was on the internet a lot and like was like very big into like being a social justice warrior. Not that I'm not anymore. Still a little bit there, but of course for them, like they grew up in a completely different time. So for me to be like, and also in Turkmenistan, it's just so different that my mother was like, no, like a man must eat first. Like you should be the one to clean the table. Very traditional values. So because of that, I always kind of like was like, I don't want to go to the kitchen. I don't want to cook. I resent that, but I'm just getting back into it, and oh, I love it so much. It's so nice to cook. And now I have a boyfriend as well who I love to feed, which is, it feels illegal. I feel like a bad feminist somehow.
Yeah, but again, I feel like there is
But
a
yeah.
fine line between, again, because I feel like it, and again, I might be wrong, and talking as not as a woman, I don't think I'm
Mhm.
the right one to say what you should feel. But I think if I were you, I think about the fact, again, it's for a different reason. Because now
Mm,
you choose to be, say, like, if you want to bake now, you choose to bake that cake. If you want to,
yeah.
say, clean the table, you made the choice that you want. It's not because you are, say, like, forced by the society, because I feel like that's where you draw
Hmm.
the line, where it's kind of like, let me,
But you have no choice.
exactly, but it's kind of like you must treat the man in this way and this way and this way. Because I think actually it's quite the
Yeah.
opposite. My mom was on the fairly, like, feminist side, which was quite weird at the time. I'll be honest. Like, growing up, you didn't really have like this. But my mom was like very outspoken, and it was quite funny to, like, yeah, to grow up with, like, my parents. But then now looking at it, I don't think it's, again, you can be a feminist and then be like, hey, look, if you like baking,
Yeah.
you like
Yeah.
baking. You're not gonna
Also,
stop baking because you're like, oh, this is not a feminist thing to do. No, you do whatever the
it's
fuck you want. Sorry. But yeah,
no,
you
no,
can't
no.
swear,
It's
by the
true.
way.
It's true. It's very true though, because yeah, I think it took me a while to like get over that and be like, no, obviously, like I like doing this. I'm gonna do this. Also, I've realized like I am a feeder. I love feeding people. Being the oldest sibling, I always had food on me as well to feed my siblings with. And now, like Vlad, my partner, who you had on before,
Yes.
he has gained a little bit of weight. He has gotten this adorable belly, and he keeps trying to get rid of it, which is so rude. That's our child. What do you mean? But like it's just yeah. I love seeing that little belly on him.
That's very, this is the strangest thing, because I feel like before I met my partner, I was actually, I did put on weight, but it was something to do with, like, the medication that I was on. But then now, although I'm trying to lose weight and I kind of, like, succeed to an extent, but yeah, she's still like, no, you shouldn't. Like, I'm like, what? This
I
is,
think this is a common misconception. I think men a lot of the times think that women want like a I don't know like a Hemsworth six pack type of.
yeah,
No,
like a
don't push
chiseled
him to
body.
hug.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to hug someone. You want someone with a dad bod, a provider.
Well, at least we know for a fact that Vlad is going to listen to this and love the episode.
I mean, he knows my opinions on this already, but he's like, no, but I'm happier when I'm fit. I'm like, if you're gonna talk about protein to me on your fitness journey, I'm gonna break up with you. I'm gonna break up with you. You know what he said to me when I was like, I'm gonna do Ramadan? He was like, oh, I was thinking of doing keto. I'm like, okay, that's the same thing.
But I feel like this is the fake is such as, 'cause I think this is, again, another, no problem. I'm trying to look for a better word, but when you speak with non-religious people, because I know, for example, again, like, I grew up in a Christian community, although I'm Jewish, and I keep Yom Kippur. That's, the time when I fast, like, I do the
Hmm.
whole thing. But then, no, but basically, every time I feel like, when I heard, like, even Muslim people speaking with, like, non-Muslim people in the past and talking about Ramadan, some people feel like, oh, you're doing it because of the food, but it's not. It's actually, again, it's the whole, it's more like a holistic process. It's about more about, like, the spirituality behind it and the reasons why you're
Yeah.
fasting, rather than not eating itself. But I do feel like, naturally, it's such a natural thing to do, where it's like, oh, I'm going to, like, yeah, I'm gonna fast because of this, like, reason. And then to hear someone going like, yeah, let's do, like, a Mediterranean diet. Like, it's not the same, this is not intermittent fasting, although it might sound like it, but that's not the reason why you do it. And it's quite funny.
Yeah.
Again, I do understand it, and I feel like it's one of those, like, cute things, but I also, yeah, find it hilarious.
It's sweet. He had a lot of questions as well. He was just like, so you can't even drink water? I'm like, no. It's like, no, but surely water is fine. I'm like, no, 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 it's not.
Yeah, this is,
Just curiosity.
and it's because it's like, again, it's like such a, like, it's a bigger than that, like, that's, it almost feels like I remember hearing, for example, like, I think, well, actually, my rabbi last year was talking about, like, how actually food is kind of like on the list of things that you're looking to
Mm,
to achieve, the food is kind of like actually the last one that you're thinking about. You're doing it more again for like your well-being. You're doing more to remember or to
Hmm.
like try and understand how what other people are going through, to bring like the sense of community together, because the other
Hmm.
people are also doing it. And then is only like, again, one of the very last reasons is, oh yeah, also you might lose some weight, because again you're going through this period when you're again not eating as much, for example, or you might like get like a more balanced diet or whatever, but that's not the nowhere near the top.
Well, you gotta tell some of my aunties that, because I definitely had some aunties who treat it like a diet competition kind of thing of like, oh, I lost 10 kilos and done, which is also crazy because I've always gained weight in Ramadan because you're just like, because you have such a limited amount of time to eat, you're just like stuffing your face as much as you can. And I feel like this is a common thing. I think a lot of people do gain weight during Ramadan. Also because I'm sure like that not eating for a long period of time and then eating out, your body's probably quite confused and wants to hold on to like any fat that I don't
Yeah,
know
just in
is
case it
there.
wants to have some energy for later. But actually, can I ask you a question, which I'm sorry, I'm genuinely like curious. I've never got to ask anyone who's fasting. How do you sleep during Ramadan?
Oh yeah, that's such yes. This is annoying because you wake up early to to have your suhoor, and then you well, a lot of people go back to sleep. I like to go back to sleep as well, but I also really like coffee. So it's usually like a I don't know balancing act that I go with. I'm like, do I want to sleep today or do I want to have a coffee? But yeah, usually you just go straight back to sleep and then you wake up in your normal time. Maybe you have a nap, and then in the evening, I mean, some people, I feel like I've definitely had some cousins or known some people who would like stay up all night so that they could eat more and then sleep all day so it's easier to deal with. But that kind of defeats the point of it.
But this is the thing as well, which I was thinking again, maybe this year is not so bad because of the season. But then I was
Hmm.
thinking about like again, because we were talking before we started recording about like how a few years ago, you had the sundown at like 9 p.m. or like 8 p.m. And then say you're breaking the fast, you're eating then, and then you say you want to eat again before you go to sleep, but then you can't go to sleep straight away. Or at least like, I can't go with like a full tummy. I gotta do something. And then it's kind of like, okay, so you've got like a few hours of sleep, and then you got to wake up to have something before you have to start the fast. I don't know. Yeah, it's very interesting.
It is interesting, and then also it depends on where you are as well. Like the timings are so like in I heard somewhere like in Iceland, there's like I think like an hour window of like you just had your iftar, great. Now go get your suhoor so that you can fast for the rest of the day, which is insane. That is hard. So I think yeah, it really varies depending on where you are because it's to do with like sunrise and sunset. But yeah,
Wow.
an hour.
I know. Yeah, imagine, and you have like your lunch, breakfast, dinner all
Yeah,
together.
you
It
don't even have
almost,
time to pray in between.
it reminds me of, well, as well as that, I didn't even think about it, but it actually reminds me of, do you know, like the Joey's, like Rachel's truffle, the
Oh
English,
yeah.
that sort of thing where you just have everything in one bowl, and that's everything there. But now, before we wrap it up, an hour just went flew by very quickly. But
Mm.
yeah, let's the one question I wanted to ask you is, yeah. So you're talking about the breakup that led into
Oh
doing
yeah.
stand up comedy. What was
Yeah.
How did you come through that thought? Because again, obviously, like once you break up, you're going through again a breakup. You need some time to, I don't know
Mm.
what's the way of saying, but yeah, like figure stuff out. How long in that process? At what point did you go like, hey, you know what? Now is the time to try this.
I was a foolish young girl in a very like we had a long distance relationship. I was low key kind of fantasizing about breaking up for like a whole year before it actually happened. It was like very off and on of like so it took me maybe like 3 months of like really mourning the relationship, and then I was like, I need to pull myself out of this. I need to like do new things. I'll do this, I'll do that. I went to a music festival for the first time and like slept in it. And
God.
it just because there's that thing where you know when you're going through it, like there's like a dip in your like mental health or something big happens and you're like, I need to pull my like I just need to like jump into something, otherwise I'm not gonna get out of this. Because you're like, oh, I feel myself falling, I need to just like I need to, yeah, that's the feeling I get, at least, is like I need to jump. Or I don't know, because you were saying you would sometimes think about like moving to Australia, but I can tell that I'm having a hard time when my instinct is to like move to Siberia and like change my name to Olga and like have a new family, you know? Like that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling that running away instinct. It's time to like see what's happening. Um, but I feel like I usually deal with myself in that kind of way. I remember when I had my um, first job, like proper full time job where I really, really didn't want to do it. But I was like, yeah, we're in the rat race now. Um, I promised myself a tattoo if I could stay in the job for at least a month. And like, you know, like those kind of like bargaining with yourself and like,
Yeah.
yeah, I went through also because lockdown happened quite soon after. I went through this breakup, so I shaved my head, I bleached my hair, I went through it. I
What?
changed my whole personality. Uh, I was just like, I'm gonna be a new person.
So
Yeah,
is
I
this
dated girls for the first time.
no way?
So
Wait, so is
yeah,
this
yeah.
then Aisha now? Is Aisha from before, or is it Aisha with like some basically like say through this like self-discovery process that started
hmm
after the breakup? Did you keep anything and you're like, oh, actually, you know, this these sort of things that I've done, I think that was just like the impulse at the time, or did you actually take something and you still say live by it since then?
Definitely, I think like a lot of it, like I do want to grow my hair out and then shave it again. I really loved the feeling of having a shaved head.
No way.
So much less to like deal with, and then also the feeling of like putting your hand on your scalp. That is the best feeling ever. And I want to recreate
Really?
that.
Because I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like I feel terrible. I mean, I do it with my when I shave my beard, and I'm like, this is
Mm.
disgusting.
No, but
But
isn't there a
again,
part that's like kind of satisfying of like
nah,
feeling the grit?
it
No.
gets itchy. No, itchy straight away. That's why I don't go to the barbers now anyway. Because I feel like even when I do like the sides or whatever, after a few days,
Uh,
I'm just like, I hate this. I'd rather
really?
it,
No.
yeah, I'd rather it just grow and that's it.
No, I loved it because with long hair, sometimes it's like you don't know what's going on your scalp. It's just like, especially like with my hair, it's so much of it. Like it just needs to, when you can actually touch your scalp, and then showering is so much faster.
Yeah, I can
It
see that.
just, yeah. And also like whatever, with a shaved head, whatever you wear is like cool instantly, like edgy already. Whereas like sometimes I walk around, I wear an outfit, I'm like, oh my God, I look like someone's mother. I was
Look
like, I
like
swear I'm cooler than this. So I think there's like a lot of like, I don't know. I think I'll keep me entertained for a while. Who knows what I'll do?
which is fair enough, because again, I feel like these sort of things that are important. It's good to try. Although I feel like every time I played around with, I think I had like a septum pierced once because I was going through something and I was like, I feel like
Yeah.
if I change my looks as much as I can, it's gonna make me feel better. And it didn't. But I bleached my hair and then I cut my hair. I pulled Britney Spears when
Oh, nice, nice,
I just
nice.
went in the
Mine was a
bathroom
Slim
and I
Shady.
just oh no, I did the Slim Shady, and then I was like, this is still not making me happy. So then let's try and just
Slim,
shave
oh,
it all. Yeah, but then that was the last time when I did because I was like, oh my God, I remember the feeling and like almost when he goes like behind when the ears touch the scalp. I was no.
It seems like a sensory issue for you then.
Yeah, again, I'm sure there were many issues. I think the sensory was probably at
Well,
the bottom of the list. But
apparently,
yes,
this is kind of a thing. Is like when there's a lot of like, I don't remember where I read this, but when there's a lot of like political upheaval or like a lot of big changes in your life, or you feel that like the world feels very uncertain, apparently there is actually a correlation that there's a lot more people like going to barbershops and like getting drastic haircuts and like getting tattoos and piercings. Because like I think your instinct is to try to hold on to any form of like I have control, um, And I think that's when I think about it, I was like, oh, I was just trying to like hold on to like the idea of like I am in control of my life, not of I don't know what's gonna happen. Because it was also pandemic that was like kind of
Yeah.
pushing me off the edge, and the thing that really pushed me to try, because I did one gig before the pandemic happened, and then I did after, like I really properly did it after.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean after pandemic. Is there? Yeah, there's always been flus and stuff now.
Yeah, it
Who
must have been
knows
like
when the
what,
next one's gonna be?
2022. Yeah, well, this is the thing. Is like, is it the first pandemic? Is it the last pandemic? Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, it's all uncertain. Listen, if we have another pandemic, I will definitely shake my head again.
I feel like I started doing skipping rope during the pandemic, which is something that I've never seen myself doing. Yeah, I did it
Oh
for like
wow,
a couple, no, for a couple of days, and I was like, I'm done. But I remember like
really?
buying all these like different weights. I watched loads of videos on YouTube about, like skipping, and then I was like, I ordered this. I remember I spent like almost like 150, like 200, almost 200 pounds, I think, like yeah, skipping gear, and I used it like
Mm,
twice, and then I was like, I can't even.
wow.
Yeah, no, and that was I was like, I'm done with this. But look, the thing is, I'm so grateful for you to take the time, and again, especially given the fact that again you're doing the fasting as well. I'm sure
No, thank you.
you're dehydrated as it is, but never mind. After speaking
I
for
will
an
find
hour,
any excuse to yap. I'm a yapper.
perfect. But before we go, the first thing is, I'd love to do this. By the way, we'll do this again. Hopefully, once after the Ramadan is over, and then
Hmm.
we'll continue because we haven't talked about so much. I wanted to ask you a lot of other questions, and we didn't get through with it. But then, yes, the last question is, because I've seen you're super busy, like so you got loads of shows going on, like loads of even like different shows that you've been a part of. What is it that you've got coming up, and then also where do
Oh, that's a good
other
point.
people see your work? Just for reference, I think this is going to go out at the end of the month, so from like
End of
April
the
on.
month.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I run a recurring gig at Angel. It's a women and non-binary night called Material Girls. It's usually the last Tuesday, so it'll be April 21st, I think, for that one. The one right now is going to be 25th of March. I mean, maybe it'll be too late for that. I also do a show called Too Muslim, Too Furious with my friend Hassan. And I think we're going to do another WIP at Top Secret soon-ish. I don't know what date yet, but probably sometime in April as well. But we're working on a new show, so it's different from the one before. We sold out our Edinburgh one, which was really great. So this one is called Deep Sci. Too Muslim, Too Furious 2, Go Halal or Go Home. So it's a whole new show. It'll be fun. But yeah, if anything, I'm always on socials at Aisha Amanduri, which is just spelled the way it sounds. I tried to get at official Jackie Chan, but it was already taken. So I have a joke about it. I have a joke about it. I'm not being racist to myself.
No, I think that's fine. Again, I think if it's self racism, I think it's acceptable.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the rush hour rule. Like, I can't be racist. I'm a race.
Exactly. But Aisha, thank you so much, and good luck with everything that
Thank
you're doing.
you.
Sounds like you're busy, and that's good. And yeah, I'll catch you later. Take care.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Hey, how was it? Was it good? Was it what you hoped for? Was it better? Was it? I hope it wasn't worse. I mean, I'm pretty sure it wasn't worse. This was very good. If I say so myself, it was a great conversation to have with Aisha. Um, and yeah, look, I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you check out Aisha's socials. I'll put her handle in the bio of this episode. And from me, the drill. Check out my socials. Also, yeah, again, if you are based near London or in London and you're free on the 16th, well, you do something and be free on the 16th of April and come down to the show. The tickets are available. Um, they're very cheap as well. And yeah, the link is in bio. in my bio, and the event is up almost everywhere. Events are up. If I'm being, besides of Ticketmaster, I think we don't have it on Ticketmaster, but besides of that, it's pretty much everywhere. And yeah, cool. That's it. From you know the drill. From me, Pickle and Sarma. Until next time, stay skillful. Bye.